welcome to a new episode of Nile Magazine. Today we have a lot of interesting segments, so stay with us. Our first segment is Story of the Week, and in it I'll be interviewing Dr. Amr Talat, Professor of Electronics. It will be followed by the Eye of Horus, and in it we will be heading to the area of Coptic Cairo to learn more about it. As for the science page, in it we will be learning more about the latest research in the field of solar energy. Finally, in our culture review, we will be looking into the restoration of the Baron Empire Palace. Now it's time for Story of the Week. It's time to interview Dr. Amr Talat, Assistant Professor of Electronics, to learn more about his story of success. Welcome, Doctor. First of all, I'd like to ask you, why did you choose to major in engineering?
Actually, this is an old story. I always loved math. I always loved physics. I always loved to study math and physics when I was young. Then when I get older, it was clear that I want to be an engineer. And actually, after I finished my studies in Thanawiya Amma, this is long ago, I started to study engineering and electronics engineering. I used to love this field. And I have been always fascinated with these small devices that change people's lives.
You actually attended Cairo University. Would you tell me what's the most memorable thing about your university studies?
I attended Cairo University. I studied there for 5 years. I graduated in the mid-90s, 1997. The best thing about Cairo University is the group, is the people. At this time, we didn't have a very large group. We were 100 students, and until now, we have very close relations together. We have some of the best professors in Egypt. We learned a lot from them, and a lot of them leave real, let's say, signs or marks in our career planning afterwards. The whole journey in Cairo University was really enjoyable.
Well, does having a dad who's also a university professor, did that affect you that you wanted to teach?
Yes, a bit. But my dad is not an engineer. My dad actually is a professor of marketing. So I took a totally different direction, because most times the only one in my family who went to engineering, not to marketing field. My sister, my mom, all of them were marketing. But I loved engineering. But yes, the effect of my dad showed that I also enjoy engineering, enjoy teaching. Although I couldn't stop of starting more implementing things by my own hands.
Well, Doctor, you did your master and your PhD degrees both in Canada. So would you tell us more about them? And let's start with your master's degree.
I left Egypt in 1999. I have been to Montreal, Canada, Concordia University. I finished my master's degree in hardware verification, where I test electronics. It was a big group called Hardware Verification Group. My supervisors had over 20 students. One of the major things I love about my master's is that although it's very, it have a mathematical background, so on, it's still practical. Because Intel and so on still use these results in verifying their own circuits. So I don't know if you'd like to tell more details about this degree. What we were doing is that we were testing arithmetic circuits, how these circuits run, and how to ensure that these circuits can never perform wrongly 100% of the time. So we test this through building a mathematical model and designing this mathematical model to model the circuit and to test all the test cases possible to ensure that this mathematical functions is going to work perfectly all the time.
Was your PhD degree associated with the same topic or a different topic?
No, my PhD degree more is about security. My PhD degree is about securing hardware designs, so no one can remanufacture it without our performance. At this time, there was a revolution called system on a chip. How to build many systems over one small chip. What we did is that we built a way to watermark these chips like we watermark money, so that anyone manufacture or reuse my chip without my permission, I will get to know this and can sue him and can stop him from using my own designs.
Well, Doctor, now, how did you find the scientific research in Canada, and was it much different than studying at Cairo University?
Okay, this would be sad, but yes, it's much different. The main point in Canada is two things. Actually, financial aspects is totally different, so that people can get more equipment, more tools, more students. And number two, which is even more important, is the system. There's a clear system where people work together, study together. The government supports this a lot. We have students from all over the globe. We have students from different countries, and all of this works to get things to get things better, or to develop better things. We're trying to do this. We're dreaming of having this in Cairo and in any university we're working in, but we don't have this system, this gears contacting together that performs a real good research or a great output.
Now, you spent here in the United States. Was that immediately following your PhD, or did you come to Egypt for some time and then travel to the United States? Would you tell us more about that?
Actually, no, it was immediately. I finished my PhD on October 2005. I started in the States January 2006. It was immediately after I finished my PhD. I worked in West Virginia time. I enjoyed Charleston. It's a nice city. Then, due to family reasons and due to coming to Egypt and visiting it in the summer, I decided to return permanently to Egypt. So I finished one more semester in the States. So it's 1 year at all. Then I resigned and returned back.
Now, tell us more about working in the United States and the subjects you taught, the research you've did. Elaborate on that experience, please.
I didn't do a lot of research. We had this unmanned vehicle, or actually it was a small plane that should be autonomous, that it flies alone. I was responsible for the hardware in building this plane, so we built some hardware systems. I used to teach embedded systems, hardware design, and so on. We had some good students, actually some great students. We had a couple of Iranian students, actually, they were really good. And we built this small system of an unmanned plane. At this time, 2005, the unmanned plane was very hot. It was a very totally new topic of how this plane is going to decide if the objects on the ground is it a car, is it a person, or so on, and to decide if this person's what is this person's, and for recognition and so on. So what we did is that we're trying to move the algorithms from software, the algorithms that we were building, to hardware, so that we design real to perform faster, to get results faster, to see and to recognize the objects on the ground. We enjoyed the States a lot. I actually enjoyed Charleston so much. It was a small city. We have a great community. But at the end, I decided to return to Egypt.
Actually, you were quite active abroad. You told me that you were president of the Student Association. You did a lot of innovations. So tell us a bit about that.
Actually, we started in Canada. Mainly, I was an active student. Actually, I get into the student body first as a representative for electrical engineering. Then I went up in this student body until being the president of the Graduate Student Association for 1 year. Before this, I was the vice president of the Graduate Student Association. We're so active. Actually, we had two kinds of activities. One of them was services to the student, like trips, going out, traveling across Canada, and so on. Then we have also training activities, like how to train our students to become better in the job market. In Canada, most of the graduate students are not Canadians. Some of them are actually, great amount of them are Egyptians, Iranians, Chinese, and so on. So training them to integrate in the job market is essential. Maybe they were great technically, but they need a lot of small soft skills that they can help them to integrate into the job market. This was our main job. So teaching them a lot of these soft skills out of our association helped many people to get a better job and to live a nice life in Canada. That's about it mainly. Also, I was working with IEEE, which is an Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineering in Canada. I worked as a student first in the student club there. But the last year before I leave, I was the IEEE Secretary of Montreal, which is one of the positions in the governing body of IEEE in Montreal.
Now, doctor, when you came back to Egypt, you joined a private university. You're now an assistant professor in it, and you're working on IT and networking. Would you tell us more about that major or that department?
Actually, networks and electronics. I'm a dual appointment in network and electronics department. What we're doing, we have two departments. One of them for electronics, where we graduate electronic engineer who can build and design real digital systems. This include, we can say it embedded system, but mainly how to design hardware systems like mobiles, like smart systems, like so on. And then the electronics department is responsible for communicating between these systems, how these systems can communicate together, how they can form a network. So what we're trying to teach students the whole path from how to build something like a small node in hardware and how they program it into a smart node that can communicate with other nodes.
One of the topics you mentioned also was verification and testing. Would you tell me more about it, because I'm not a science major, you know?
Okay, actually, one of the main problems we always have when we build a system is how we are going to test the system. Let's be frank. How many times your mobile froze while you're testing it, while you're working with it? That's a lot. The point is that this happens due to a small software bug or a problem in the programming of the mobile that causes it to stop working. What in hardware, this is much more sensitive, because in hardware we cannot change or we cannot correct this bug once it happens. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to build this hardware and verify it to ensure that it will never stop. It has to work perfectly 24/7, as we name it. To do this, is that we have a set of inputs that any input you can give to the mobile, we have to test it selling this mobile to make sure that this mobile can never stop. Actually, until now, our mobiles got bugs. This happens because we have a lot of software that run on it which is not verified. What we do is that our verification system works in all critical systems like banks, planes, even cars, like the brakes of the cars and so on, are verified to ensure that the system will never stop. It will work 100% right.
Doctor, you're also supervising a lot of projects. So would you tell us about the latest innovation you're supervising?
Actually, yes, I'm supervising a lot of projects, usually 20 or 25 a year. By now, I'm supervising around 200 projects. What we're doing this year is related to smart campus. What we're trying to do is that we're trying to move our campus from a university campus to a smart campus, where each student know his location and how he reach any place by something called indoor localization. We should have much more innovation things in the campus to make it more smart, starting from sharing audio between student mobiles, between different location and different directions in the things, a smart parking for the campus, a smart transport system inside the university so that you know exactly when the university bus will arrive in front of your home, so you don't have to wait for it. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to move our whole university campus using IoT or Internet of Things technology to a new smart place.
You mentioned that actually the future is for Internet of Things. In what way, and would you tell us more about it?
Actually, the Internet of Things is becoming the new revolution, the new technology revolution. The Internet of Things is a small embedded system that can talk. What we're trying to do is that we can make things speak. We can have a voice for everything. These things can talk together to make life easier. For instance, if your bus is going to be late for 5 minutes, smartly enough, it will send directly to your alarm, so your alarm will delay your wake-up time by 5 minutes, so you don't need to get up. Doing this all over the globe and all over the city will change the whole technology of the city to a smarter technology that giving us the edge to perform tasks better with cheaper prices and in less time. This will have a global economical impact. Some people they're saying that this will be more than this will cross the $20 trillion business by 2020, and it will be a huge amount of research and amount of jobs of jobs for our students or our professionals to work in. It's a huge technology that is changing the the face of the world. Actually, the idea of IoT is to having, instead of having the internet talking from one person to another, it's to get people, to get things talking from one thing to another, and things never stop. It will work 24/7, as I said, to make sure that that everything around us serve us in a better way.
Dr. Amr Talat, Assistant Professor of Electronics. Unfortunately, the time of this segment is up, but we will be continuing our interview in the next segment of the next episode. So till then, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Now it's time for the Eye of Horus. It's time to head to the area of Coptic Cairo to look into the churches of St. Sergius and Bacchus and the Hanging Church. Coptic Cairo is located in what the Egyptians know as Old Cairo. This is one of the oldest and first established areas in the city of Cairo. Actually, it's older than the city of Cairo itself. It's the site of the first Egyptian capital, which is the Fustat. It houses a variety of mosques as well as ancient churches. The churches in it date to the 4th and 8th century AD. One of the most important churches in that area is the Church of St. Sergius and Bacchus. The church is dedicated to Sergius and Bacchus, who were soldier saints martyred during the 4th century in Syria by the Roman Emperor Maximin. Another important feature is the feature of the Holy Virgin or the Hanging Church. It is one of the oldest churches in Egypt, and the history of the church dates back to the 3rd century AD. The Hanging or Suspended Church is named for its location above a gatehouse of the Babylon fortress, the Roman fortress in Coptic Cairo. The nave is suspended over a passage. This church is approached by 29 steps. Early travelers to Cairo dubbed it as the Staircase Church. The entrance from the street is through iron gates under a pointed stone arch. The 19th century facade with twin bell towers is then seen beyond a narrow courtyard decorated with modern art biblical scenes. Up the steps and through the entrance is a further small courtyard leading to the 11th century outer porch. Once we're inside, we can see the beautiful ceiling, which is in the shape of the reversed Ark of Noah. Also a beautiful icon status ahead. The Hanging Church has 110 icons, the oldest of which date back to the 8th century, but most of them date to the 18th century. The main altar screen is made of ebony inlaid with ivory that is carved into segments, showing several Coptic crosses and signs. It dates back to the 12th or 13th century. Over the altar screen lies a long row of 7 large icons, the central one of which is of Christ seated on the throne. On one side, the icons of the Virgin Mary, Archangel Gabriel, and Saint Peter are lined up. On the other side, Saint John the Baptist, Archangel Michael, and Saint Paul. St. Barbara originally dated to the 4th century AD, but the church was rebuilt many times. The last time was in the 11th century AD. St. Barbara was a young woman of Nicomedia in Asia Minor, who was killed by her father when she tried to convert him to Christianity. Her church had originally been dedicated to Saint Sirius and John, Abu Qir and Yohanna in Arabic, and may date to as early as the 4th century. Abu Qir came from the city of Damanhur in the Delta. According to legend, he and his brother agreed with two priests, one of whom was Yohanna, to go to the governor of the province and confess to having embraced Christianity. The governor commanded that they be shot with arrows, burned in a furnace, bound to the tails of horses, and dragged to a neighboring city. All this was done, but the saintly men suffered no harm. At last, they were beheaded by sword outside the city of Damanhur. After their martyrdom, some holy men came and built a church over the body of Abu Qir. The bodies of the other three saints were buried in Damanhur. This church is one of the largest and finest in Egypt. It has the usual divisions of narthex, nave, and side aisles, and three apses or sanctuaries. The original sanctuary screen is in the Coptic Museum. The one now in the church dates to the 13th century and is of wood inlaid with carved ivory. The icons are of the Virgin Mary, Jesus, and various saints. Behind the main altar is a domed apse that has 7 steps decorated in bands of black, red, and white marble. The chapel dedicated to the two martyrs, Cyrus and John, forms the extension to the left of the sanctuary. Time for the science page. It's time to look into the latest research in the field of solar energy. Dr. Ashraf, welcome with us. Well, first of all, I'd like you to tell us about the scientific research, especially in the field of solar energy conducted here.
In fact, we are dealing with renewable energy since the inauguration of the university. We were dealing with wind energy, we were dealing and we are dealing with solar energy. And we have different types of research. The first one is dealing with production of the solar cell itself. The other one is the implementation and the efficiency of the solar cells. The third one is to have integrated solution for wide application for industrial usage.
Now, actually, this project is quite an important and impressive project which will be inaugurated soon. So would you please tell us about it? You already took us on a tour, but would you repeat it for our viewers, please?
In fact, as you see, this is the largest ever in the world integrated solution as a showroom for integrated solution covering a wide spectrum of application, starting from energy generation and energy storage, and specifically storage as well. Because as you know, many people are familiar with solar cells, panels and solar production. But what we have here, we have different types. The first type, as you see here, is a fixed one, which is known. This is including tracking system, which adjusts itself with the sun. Another type, which is huge one for industrial scales, for the mega watt range, can rotate. And we have a very interesting and modern windmill generator, which is that one which is rotating in this direction instead of the normal fans that we know and familiar with. This type of windmills has advantage that you can generate in very low speed of wind, 3 meters per second, which is can be implemented everywhere. What does it mean? If you have a combined solution between solar and wind, then you will have at day and night, especially, you have wind speed which is very low to or the necessary wind speed which is needed for the power generation is very low, 3 meters per second. This means that this panel can generate, this windmill can generate 10 kilowatt directly. So
it's time for the culture review. It's time to look into the workshop of the restoration of the Baron Palace. The Ministry of Antiquities, in collaboration with the Heliopolis Heritage Foundation, held a workshop to discuss means of restoring the Baron Empam Palace.
في الحقيقة ورشة العمل اليوم طبعا هي ورشة لها طابع خاص.
Today we will be looking into the restoration of the Baron Empam Palace. The full-day workshop is entitled The Restoration and Reuse of the Baron Empam Palace in Heliopolis. We will form a specialized committee to study the condition of the palace and means of restoring it. Also, we have to consider methods of collecting the funds for the restoration and whether it will be reused as a cultural venue or as a museum.
أهمية هذا الأثر تاريخيا ومعماريا.
Qasr al-Baron, or the Palais Hindu, the Indian palace, is a distinctive and historic Indian-inspired mansion in Heliopolis, owned by Baron Empam, who gave it after his death to the Egyptian government. The palace was designed by French architect Alexandre Marcel and decorated by Georges Reclaut. It is inspired by the Hindu temple of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. It was built between 1907 and 1911 in reinforced concrete. As the year passed, the palace fell into oblivion.
The initiative started in 2011, and mainly it was working on 5 major issues in Heliopolis. So the building heritage, open spaces and green areas, transportation, waste management, and cultural and awareness raising campaigns.
What about your role today and the role of your initiative in terms of the Baron Palace?
So the Baron Palace is actually a symbol of Heliopolis. Anybody who knows Heliopolis knows the Baron Palace. For us as an initiative from the beginning, we were thinking that the Heliopolis Palace should be used by the local inhabitants and to move along with the neglectance of such a beautiful building. So we are now in cooperation with the Ministry of Antiquities. We are working on this workshop, which actually addressed the issue of conservation, reuse of the building, and how that could benefit the inhabitants of Heliopolis.
was a wealthy Belgian engineer and businessman who came to Egypt in 1904 to undertake the construction of a railway line linking Mansoura to Matariya. Despite losing the railway contract to the British, Impan stayed on in Egypt. He was the founder of the area of Heliopolis, and when he died, he left the palace to the Egyptian government. The workshop included discussing the history of the area of Heliopolis and the significance of the Barren Palace. The restoration project of the Barren Palace consists of two parts. The first involves studies on the restoration work, and the second is finding the best way to reuse the palace and garden.
حاليا حضرتك قصر البارون يعني احنا الحمد لله تم تسجيله كأثر للحفاظ عليه لأنه يعتبر.
The Ministry of Antiquities will be studying the condition of the palace, and we will be restoring it. It houses a variety of murals and beautiful statues. Actually, it's in a good condition compared to the time that has passed and the negligence that it has suffered from.
شوفي عن طريق بعض الرهبان اللي هناك.
By this we come to an end of this episode of Nile Magazine. Until we meet again, it's goodbye.